The skid plate bolts are 15 millimeter, but I'm not going to remove the skid plate. And then these hex bolts are 10 millimeter. And we'll just do it through this hole.
This is my 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and today I'll show you how to change the transfer case fluid. This Jeep has an NP249 transfer case, which is the all-time four-wheel drive version that only has 4 high and 4 low, but the procedure should be the same for most, if not all, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler vehicles of this era. The only difference is the amount of fluid required for each transfer case, which I'll get into later in the video. The service manual says to change the fluid every 30,000 miles or 24 months, whichever comes first. However, I haven't changed this fluid in 10 years and 2 months, but I've only put 36,000 miles on the Jeep over that time period. Regardless, that's some pretty old fluid, so I'll be collecting a sample to send to a lab for analysis that we'll go over in a future video, and we'll find out once and for all if changing the fluid every 2 years is really necessary. With that said, this is a pretty simple job, so let's get to it. Here are the tools that I used for this job. Impact wrench, breaker bar, socket wrench, 10mm hex socket, short socket extension, long socket extension, impact rated extension, a pair of dikes, and a tiny flathead screwdriver. I didn't need a floor jack or jack stands because my Jeep is lifted, but you might want those too. For this job I also needed a creeper, a light, a catch pan, rags, gloves, safety glasses, and 2 quarts of MOPAR transfer case lubricant. Funny story, I learned about MOPAR transfer case fluid while planning this job and absolutely panicked thinking that I'd been running the wrong fluid in this transfer case for the last 10 years, so I picked up a couple bottles of this at the dealership and it wasn't cheap. Later, I saw that the service manual actually recommends Dexron III automatic transmission fluid, which is good because that's what I'd been using and it's a lot cheaper than this stuff, but it's bad because I already bought this stuff. Anyway, there are links in the description for everything I used. Before starting, I went for a short drive to warm up the transfer case fluid, making sure to use the reverse gear too, and parked on level ground to do this job. Here you can see the fill and drain plugs for the transfer case, which can be removed with a 10mm hex. This Jeep has a skid plate to protect the transfer case, and it's just held on with 3 15mm bolts. But it has cutouts for changing the fluid, so I'm going to try to work around it.
So what we got here is the shortest extension I got. That's the only way this will fit.
I tried using a socket wrench, but these were so tight that I needed a breaker bar to get them loose.
Okay. Now we got the longest extension I got for the breaker bar to get around this dumb skid plate.
When doing jobs like this, always take out the fill plug first so you know it isn't seized. If you remove the drain plug first and are unable to remove the fill plug, you're gonna have a bad time.
There's not enough room to turn the breaker bar on this lower bolt, so I'm going to use the impact on the lowest setting because I don't want to break the drain plug and I don't have an impact hex socket, so we're going to be careful. Uh-oh. That's no good.
The drain plug has dirt in it that was keeping the tool from going all the way in, and I could have stripped the bolt, so I grabbed a tiny flathead screwdriver to scrape it out.
That's why you don't undo the drain bolt first, because what if you got the drain bolt out and then you couldn't get the fill bolt out? You'd be screwed. No fluid.
I collected a sample of this 10-year-old fluid to send off to a lab for chemical analysis, so stay tuned for that video coming soon. After letting the old fluid drain out, clean off and reinstall the drain plug. I didn't find a torque spec for these, so just make sure they're snug enough that they won't leak. Now we're ready for some fresh fluid. As I mentioned before, it's totally fine to use Dexron 3 automatic transmission fluid.
It's good for the 245, 247, and 249, which is what I got here. Usually I'd use a pump on top of here, but it looks like we have enough room to just take off the cap and squirt it in there. So I'm gonna try that first.
I used a pair of dikes to cut off the tip and was able to squirt the fluid directly into the fill hole without using a pump.
That is not me. Yeah, that's one down.
When fluid starts coming back out, the transfer case is full and the fill plug can be reinstalled.
Alright, it's full. Look at that. There's a little bit left in there. It should have been about 1.5 quarts that we used, but I think we used a little bit more because I squirted too much in there and now it's all coming out.
I recently made a move from Oregon to Arkansas, and I'm still setting up the new workspace, but I'll be back to filming new videos in about a week or two.
I want that to be nice and dry and clean so I can see if it's leaking later. It's been about 4 months and I drive across the country, and you can see this big spot that got wet when I changed the fluid, but it's not leaking from the drain plug and it's not leaking from the fill plug. It is, however, leaking from that seal. I'll have to look into what it takes to replace that. It doesn't look like it's leaking too bad. It's not dripping. It's not that wet. But it is seeping out.
If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for more of the best DIY videos on the internet. And until next time, just keep throwing money at it.